getting to the pass on second down. Quick hitter, one Calvin. Calvin knocks it up in the air, pulls it in at the 15, into the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. He slams it over the goalpost.
You're not going to see a better catch than that. Concentration and athleticism and hand-eye coordination. Ball thrown behind Calvin Johnson. Tipped up in the air. He's got to run away from it. Tips it back to himself. Comes up with possession. And then gets into the end zone.
And welcome in. It's Views from the Sideline, July 23rd, 2019. I'm your host, Chris Pappas. Alongside me, my co-host, Joey Tysick, and my other co-host, Malik Hill.
Happy to be here.
I didn't ask you that question.
Man, I miss those calls.
I'm happy to be here.
Malik's happy to be here, apparently. I'm happy he's
Apparently.
happy.
How do you feel right now?
You know,
Host,
I'm excited because this is our first
the
theme
captain
show.
of the ship.
Oh, gosh.
Put the pressure on him.
I don't know if I can function anymore. But this is our first theme show of 2019. We've gotten to the dog days of the sports world. We're really essentially one full week away from football. Hall of Fame game is next week, I believe.
And preseason starts.
And then preseason starts.
Do you care about preseason,
starts.
Joey? Do you care?
Do I care about preseason basketball?
Yeah. I know football.
I know, but do I care about preseason
Do you
basketball?
care about any preseasons?
Answer the question, do I worry about preseason basketball?
No.
I prioritize basketball over football. So what do you think my answer is?
Maybe.
No.
You care about Lions preseason football.
I do get a little excited when the Lions do
every time the Lions go 4-0 in preseason,
Well,
he gets that hope up.
No.
Every single
that
time.
That happens a lot.
Yes.
They do that a lot.
Every single time.
But yeah, so it is almost football season. Everybody's getting their fantasy football leagues ready. You know, it's a good time. We got to get through these next few weeks, and then we're back at it. This theme episode is going to be our favorite NFL players since 2000. We're going to do a round table here. We're going to do one of us will say one of our favorite players. You guys can go in order if you want to do a top 10. I'm just going to spew out some favorite players, and we'll discuss it. We'll break it down. We'll make fun of you because that's what's going to happen to me when I tell you guys my favorites.
Oh, man. I'm ready.
I was gonna say,
I'm very ready.
Mine are pretty respectable, I would like to think.
Oh, mine are not. There is zero respect.
My honorables have a few joke picks that are close to my heart. I feel like you have a bunch of most of your joke picks are close to your heart. This will be fun.
I'll start. Yeah. Before we get into it, though, I do want to touch on one thing before we start this theme episode. Tim Duncan is back on the bench for the Spurs.
Beautiful.
He's an assistant coach there. Just quick thoughts. Anything? Any?
It's great to see.
I'm waiting to see his wardrobe.
Yeah.
I saw somebody on Twitter post like all
I
of
think
his...
he's updated it now that it's 2019.
all of his
no more
old-
baggy stuff.
I don't think that's true.
Yeah. Does Tim Duncan seem like the type of guy that's going to update his wardrobe?
I hope so. But he was Pop's basically his right-hand man all those years.
Yeah.
He was a player, but him and Pop almost, it seemed like they were almost on the same level. Pop yelled at him every now and then, but Tim led them on the floor. Him and Pop discussed what to do every time out. Them two were the biggest heads of the dynasties and all of that.
And Popovich made a statement where he said, he allowed me to be his assistant for 19 years, so now it's time for him to return the favor.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. Yeah, it's good to see Tim Duncan back in the NBA. Couple years of retirement. Now he's coaching. It's going to be fun. Good to see him back on the sideline in the NBA.
Get rid of those dreads, Tim, please.
No, bring him back.
Man, just cut your hair.
Stop.
Be regular, Tim Duncan. We don't need to see all this. It's too much.
All right, let's jump right into it. I'll lead us off. I feel like it's fitting for my first player.
You want to list any honorables before you jump into the
No, I'm just
list?
going straight in. This is not. See, I don't have it in order.
Okay.
I'm just going to go players that have stood out to me, my favorites over the years. And I will say, okay, for this first one, I have to preface it.
He's in explaining mode already.
I was so excited when he came into the NFL. I had such excitement for him. He was already my favorite player before he took his first snap
So he
in
was
the
a
NFL.
bust is what he's saying, Joe.
And I was a fan of him for the first year, and then he kind of fell off. And I will still always root for him, even though he's a train wreck and doesn't seem like he's the best type of person. But hopefully he gets another crack in the NFL. He has been in the CFL. Johnny Manziel,
Hey!
Johnny Football. Yes, Johnny Manziel.
Because of how bad he was, I couldn't put him on my list. I will wear a Cleveland Browns Johnny Manziel jersey forever, but I'm sorry. I couldn't put him on my
I mean, this is just our
favorite
favorites.
Even though I wear the jersey, I love Johnny Manziel, but I couldn't do it.
But yeah, Johnny Football, got to give him some love. I mean, Texas A&M Johnny was legendary, yes. And he had all that hype coming in. I actually was excited for Cleveland Browns football that first year because I was like, this guy's going to be fantastic, going to be electric to watch. He had his moments in his first year, but nothing of consistency. And then he had all his issues that came out. And then it finished with him sitting at a bar, watching a talk show talk about him. Yeah. But yeah. That was Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, one of my favorites. Malik, Joey has nothing to say to me because there's nothing to say there.
Since me and Joey have organized lists and some honorable mentions, we'll throw out some honorables first. First of all, Mike Allstott, one of the last big fullback / running backs in the NFL. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, number 40. When he got through the hole, he just ran you over. He had the ability to shake you sometimes. When he got into the open field, he had speed, but no gloves, just some tape on the wrists, a big lineman face mask, and he just ran you over. It was beautiful old school football. I wish we could see some more of that, but the rules are changing, and yeah, kind of sucks. Next is Danny Woodhead.
God.
Tiny running back for the New England Patriots, D3, all-time rushing leader. The fact that he played in the NFL was amazing. He actually made an impact on the New England Patriots, which was amazing. Kevin Jones from the Detroit Lions. He was my He was my first.
I did like Kevin Jones.
He was my first favorite player of the Detroit Lions when I first started watching in like 05, 06 is when I first started watching. And running backs were my thing, and Kevin Jones was the running back on my favorite team. He wasn't even that great, but he was a running back on my favorite team, so Kevin Jones.
I do have my first favorite line on my list as well. Got to throw that in there. Go ahead.
And then this is easily the most recent, not on the list, but honorable, Alvin Kamara. I love watching him almost more than most running backs in this generation.
I'm not sure I'd put him as a favorite, though.
That's why he's in my honorables. I love watching him run because of his balance, his ability to make an impact, blocking, running, catching. He can do it all. He has all the talent. I love watching Alvin Kamara. Honorable is not on the list.
Nice. All right. My honorable. I have a big list of honorables, but I'm going to try to rattle them off quickly. Give you a quick history, though. I didn't start watching football like a lot until about 2007, right when I entered high school.
You just didn't care about football at all?
Didn't. I couldn't get into it. I didn't like it. My little brother played football a lot, so I enjoyed watching it in that aspect. And I had played Madden before a little bit, but I could just never get into it. And the only thing that ever drew me to it was basically 3 teams outside of the Lions that I knew about, because mostly I liked their logo, and just over the years, like, I knew about them. So one was the Ravens. I knew about their 2000 championship, and where they're just insanely good in defense. I love the color scheme. Buffalo Bills. I don't know why I was drawn to them, but Buffalo Bills
in the years where they were terrible.
Yeah, and then the team that I was really drawn to always was the Dolphins. Dolphin was one of my favorite animals growing up. The color scheme was cool. I had gotten a jacket from the Dolphins from my cousin, and so it just stuck. So here's players basically all from those teams that I enjoyed, but I couldn't put them on the list. So Jamal Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, Ted Ginn Jr., Cameron Wake.
Team. Oh, yep. Dolphins.
Now I'm going to the Dolphins. Ted Ginn Jr., Cameron Wake, Pat White, Carlos Dansby, Zach Thomas, Jason Taylor, Joey Porter, Jake Long. And then from the Bills, Marshawn Lynch, Tyrod Taylor, Mario Williams, Marcus Stroud, Marcel Darius. And those are my
Dang, you got a list. Oh my goodness.
Because those are teams that like I used to watch and love, so. Yep, but I couldn't put them on my top 10. There's no way.
Buffalo Bill Marshawn I would not put on my list.
That's where he started.
He was really good.
Yeah.
Buffalo just couldn't get it together.
See, I'm a Seattle Marshawn type of guy. All right, I'll give you my next favorite, and then we'll go to your number 10 because you just did your honorables. I guess I might as well just spill the beans on this one so Joey can just unleash. Geno Smith. Shout out number 7. Geno.
I
New
was
York
really
Jet.
hoping he wasn't on the what?
New York
what?
Jet.
There's no good.
all-time.
How can he be a favorite when there's no good?
You know, Geno had a lot of potential. He was one of those.
Every quarterback that's drafted has potential.
He was potential. He was one of those quarterbacks with a lot of mobility in the pocket. He had that. He would get out of the pocket, get some yards. You know.
So you're a favorite. The idea of Geno Smith.
You know, and I actually almost got a Geno Smith jersey, but you know they added the shipping costs when I was trying to check out, and you know it was just too much for me. But
wow.
Yeah, Geno Smith.
The imaginary great Geno Smith is his favorite.
New York Jet legend. That's why I'm a Jets fan. Shout out Geno. Hopefully you come on the podcast soon. You know, we got our email in the description, so hit us up.
Tim Tebow had a better Jets career than Geno Smith.
I didn't get there yet. Why are you spoiling?
You haven't given a reson yet why he could be a favorite.
No, I did give you the reason.
Because he could have been good.
Yes, the idea. It honestly it became a gag at the end of it.
To be fair, I can't argue that because that's exactly my preface for rooting for the Lions every year. For the hope.
That's just a problem. That's just a problem.
I mean, same with Malik and Michigan football.
There are a few. Hey, man. At least
Malik was about.
They have winning seasons.
Regular seasons.
No championships, but they have winning seasons.
What's in common with all of our 3 favorite teams? None of them have produced a championship.
Disappointment.
Yes. That's how we've bonded on this show. All right, Malik, what's one of your favorites?
My number 10 is Jerome Bettis, running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Why are you laughing, Joe?
I never liked Jerome Bettis, but that's
Hall of Fame running back, another classic power back, but he was, unlike Mike Allstott, he was a real deal running back. He wasn't a fullback / running back. They handed it to Jerome Bettis sometimes 35, 40 times a game if they needed it. He had the speed and the agility to get it done, but he was mostly power. He won the Super Bowl in his hometown in his very last game. Legendary career. As a Pittsburgh Steeler fan, I was a much bigger Pittsburgh Steeler fan when I was younger, and he was the guy on the team at the time. So Jerome Bettis is my number 10.
Joe?
My number 10, as I had said earlier, I basically got into football around 2007 was kind of the breaking point. And me and my brother used to play Madden 07 all the time, constantly. And the cover athlete on Madden 07 was Sean Alexander.
I was wondering if anybody's going to put Sean Alexander.
I could never get into Sean Alexander as a player.
Yeah. I mean, I put him on number 10 just because, like, I think he won MVP in 2005.
Yeah.
I believe it was.
That one great year he had.
So, like, he was super good. He was a little mix of that power and elusiveness. And because he was kind of that player that I remember when I first got into football, that's why I put him at number 10. I really didn't watch him a ton, but I always knew of him, and I watched a lot of his highlights and stuff, and he was just an incredible running back. So
I could never get into Sean Alexander. Watching him play was because he was great for just that one season. I started watching him after that, and just watching him was boring.
Yeah.
After that season, because he never replicated another really good season. So
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Me? Okay. All right. What do I want to go with?
The follow-up to Geno Smith.
This is going to be a hell of a list.
This is good. This one's a little bit better. This is my first favorite Lion, and really got me into the Detroit Lions. Roy Williams.
I can respect
wide receiver.
That. He was supposed to be the guy.
He was supposed to be the guy. I have
one of many guys.
Him and Charles Rogers.
I have like an autographed plaque of Roy Williams and everything, and he was my guy when I first started watching the Lions. So he's in my favorites for sure.
Listen, that was at the time where they drafted a receiver in the first round for like 4 straight years. Because
Roy was good, though.
What if we had a big guy outside for Joey Harrington? That's how it was for like 4 straight years.
Wait, Joey was my next one.
You're serious?
I just made Joey choke on his water.
Oh. Roy Williams. Wow.
Malik, go ahead.
My number 9, Let me check real quick to make sure.
Oh my gosh, you got to be prepared on this.
My number 9
podcast.
is Russell Wilson, quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks. Ever since he came into the league, when at first he started off as more of a dual threat quarterback, but every year he's gotten better and better and better as a passer. He's carried that team. When the Legion of Boom started to fizzle out and they got old and they had to bring in younger guys on the defense, Russell Wilson, whether it was 9 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins, he was putting that team on his back every year. He didn't have elite talent. He still doesn't have elite talent in the receiving core. They're building and getting better on offense, but he's never had elite receivers. Doug Baldwin made himself a Pro Bowl receiver, and I respect him for that. But he's gotten better and better every year with solid receivers and just okay talent around him. I love his mobility. He doesn't get sacked much because his intelligence as a quarterback is so high. He's really accurate, and he's just he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL to me, and I love watching him play.
Joey?
My number 9 also where I'll put one of my first Lions on my list, but he also played for the Dolphins.
Oh, God.
One of the most exciting college football players to ever play, Reggie Bush.
Oh, yeah.
I considered him as an honorable because of that one memorable season.
Right. Yeah, he had a very inconsistent pro career. He was still super electrifying at times, and like I said, because
Wasn't Reggie a Jet for a short period of time or no?
He never. I think he got signed, but he never played.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah,
the injuries had been too much at that point.
But he was great at Miami, and then he came to the Lions, and I thought he was going to do great for the Lions.
He was really good.
He did for a year. Yeah,
he had a stretch where he was living up to his talent.
Yeah.
Right. But just an inconsistent career, unfortunately. But super fun to watch, even in the pros.
That's actually a good pick. Yeah, this is another one of my favorite players growing up too. Chad Ochocinco. Not Chad Johnson. Chad Ochocinco. Specify. Number 85 for the Cincinnati Bengals. He was just so fun to watch. He was kind of like a Kelvin Johnson light version, and just a lot just with that Dwight Howard mentality of just kind of a jokester.
But people forget how good
He
Chad
was.
was. He was a top 3 receiver in the
Yes.
NFL in his day. Chad was almost unstoppable for a
Saying
little bit.
Kelvin Johnson light is a compliment, because Kelvin Johnson, in my opinion, is top 2, top 3 wide receiver of all time.
Yeah, if it wasn't for all the jokes, people would really take his career seriously. He might be a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. But yeah, Chad Ochocinco, he's one of my favorites. Always enjoyed watching him. Malik?
Number 8 on my list is James Harrison.
I almost had him on mine.
Defensive end / linebacker for the Pittsburgh Steelers in their short period of their golden days in the late 2000s. 2008 Defensive Player of the Year. A guy that he wasn't a high draft pick. I'm pretty sure he went undrafted out of college out of Kent State. He got cut by several teams. It wasn't until his 5th or 6th year where he finally started to get a chance, and people started to notice how good of a football player he was. Steelers gave him a chance. He became dominant instantly. He was a vicious pass rusher. He knocked out many people. Gave a lot of people concussions, knocked people out of games. He's one of the biggest reasons why you can't hit head-to-head anymore, because of the ridiculous hits he used to put on people. But he was I'd say, second most important player on those defenses at that time. Even though he won Defensive Player of the Year, he was the second most important player on that defense because of how vicious he was and how he impacted games. And I loved watching him play back then.
I hated the Steelers, so I hated James. I didn't hate James Harrison. I respected the crap, though, out of his work ethic.
I hated the Ravens at that time.
Yeah, so
I liked Ray Lewis, but I hated the rest of the team.
Yeah, and then James Harrison is one of the scariest people to ever step foot on a football field. Not gonna lie.
Just retired last year.
Yeah,
and is probably still in playing shape.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh, big time, yeah.
Workout warrior.
He'll be like that forever.
He's like Ben Wallace of the NFL when it comes to that.
Scary.
He's just always in good shape.
Yeah.
Joe.
Well, my number 8 is going to the opposition to those Ravens. One of my favorite running backs growing up, Willis McGahee.
Boot. No, I'm just kidding. I liked Willis.
Yeah. He was
Who
never.
did he play for?
The Ravens. That's like what he's most known for, at least. But he did end up on the Bills as well, so he checks off two teams. But he was one of those power backs, and I liked some power backs. I tended to go for the elusive guys, but Willis McGahee was different. He would just run people over. I remember in Madden, they gave him like a 99 stiff arm in one of the games. So he was fun to use. Also, he always used to wear a visor a lot.
Yeah, that black visor, he looked cool.
It was always kind of a good look. I don't know. But yeah, just him and the Ravens growing up. That's what I remember. So Willis McGahee.
He could have been a lot greater because
Yeah.
injuries really made him into that like more powerful back.
He was
that he
similar.
became.
He was similar to Reggie
Coming out of
Bush.
Miami, he was absolutely electric.
Yeah, he was part of probably the greatest college football team of all time.
Yeah.
2001 Hurricanes.
My next favorite, already been mentioned so far, not like as an official pick, but Ray Lewis. And I'm just taking him as a player. I know all the off the field issues. I'm not discounting anything. We're just saying favorite players here. The energy, the passion he played with, everything you saw from him getting his team hype in the circles, in the tunnel. It was just so entertaining, and that's what drew me to the Ravens at a young age was Ray Lewis just getting his team hyped and ready to go. He played with everything he had, and it was inspiring to watch. So Ray Lewis, one of my favorites.
He was easily a top 5 leader in NFL history. There aren't many people that can get your team to play at a higher level like Ray Lewis could.
Yeah.
My number 7 is a guy that pretty much got coined a catchphrase from commentators and analysts all over. Whenever he scored a touchdown on a return, they would say, "Devin Hester, you are ridiculous." Devin Hester,
Great pick. That's a great pick.
the best returner in NFL history. He better be a first ballot Hall of Famer because
I think
he's
he will be.
greatest returner of all time. And his rookie year alone is one of the most electric years in NFL history. Returning, I think it was 5 returns for a touchdown. It was 5 or 6 for touchdowns just in his rookie year. When he came out of Miami, nobody knew what position he was going to be. He played DB and receiver, and he returned. He wasn't great at any of them. And he pretty much was the same with the Bears. He fluctuated between positions. But as a returner, there was nobody that could top him in his time in the NFL, even down to his last years. Teams were still scared when Devin Hester caught the ball. And yeah, he was ridiculous. When he returned that kick return in the Super Bowl on the very first kickoff, that's one of my favorite memories from a Super Bowl because it was just incredible to see.
Yeah, you don't see it too often where teams will literally just kick away from a guy.
Oh yeah,
and they won't even kick to him because there's no point.
His numbers could have been greater if his status wasn't so high and teams kicked away from him in the coming years, and he was still able to break the NFL record for returns.
Yeah, that was a fun couple of
All-time
years.
great.
I almost added Devin Hester to my list. Devin Hester and Josh Cribbs for a little while were just going back and forth.
Oh yeah, those are some fun years.
Super exciting. So I was
Cribbs came out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I was always disappointed when they changed the rules and they moved the place kick farther up, and so now they don't
Kinda
have as many
took it away,
returns.
yeah.
Takes a edge off the game that disappoints me. Another one too for the Lions. Back when I first started watching the Lions, like the only player that I would ever get excited for is Eddie Drummond.
Oh yeah, he was.
I forgot about
Oh
Eddie.
my god,
Good returner for
I'm
the
so
Lions.
happy you just brought that name up. I haven't heard the name Eddie Drummond probably since I was like in the 5th or 4th grade.
He was like the only thing that I really knew about the Lions, and
Him and Jason Hanson.
it was exciting. Yeah.
Shouts out to Eddie Drummond. I wondered what he's doing. He was a really good returner.
Anyway, my number 7, back to the Dolphins. Brandon Marshall.
That's that's a
number
I
7.
I can.
Yep.
Well, because he played for so many different teams.
Yeah, his
Brandon Marshall-
Actually, I can't hate.
Brandon Marshall is a Hall of Fame receiver.
Shout out the New York Jets.
Stop it. The tail end of his career.
Shout out the New York Jets.
The tail end of his
Joe,
career has been trouble.
Joe.
I will
Listen,
never.
Only receiver to go for over 1,000 yards with 4 different teams.
Right.
That's great. You just gonna keep the
I
hand
got
out?
Joe. I can't.
Obviously-
JETS. No. Don't
Yeah.
give him a high five.
Obviously could have. I think he could have even been better.
If he got to the Jets earlier in his career.
Continue, Joe.
he had some injury issues. He's had some off-field issues and things like that. So he's had a lot of distractions, which has been a problem. But like those years when he was with like the Dolphins and the Bears, he was incredible. He'd just go up and get everything. I thought he was fun to watch. Obviously, again, because he played for the Dolphins was part of why I lean towards it. But he's just one of my favorite wide receivers to watch.
One of the few players to ride for Jay Cutler. I think he might be the only person that has defended Jay Cutler to the end, and he's a good man for that because I don't think many of his teammates would probably ride for him.
I think mostly
today.
Though that's because he could go and get the ball, and Jay could throw it all the way down there, and he doesn't have to be accurate. Brandon Marshall would do the
and
rest.
Jay targeted him like every 2 or 3 plays,
so it worked out.
I'm gonna ride that wide receiver reign here, and Larry Fitzgerald.
Oh, why didn't I put? Oh my god!
You don't have him on your list at all?
God, I'm ashamed of myself.
Yeah, Larry Fitz, man.
I'm terrible.
I've been watching that guy since I was a kid, and he's still putting in the work. I don't think he retired. He signed up for this year too, right? Yeah, one more year.
Still good too.
Still putting up outrageous numbers at his age. The work ethic this guy puts in. The crazy amount of catches and records that he holds, especially for that organization. Larry Fitzgerald, man. I'm happy we get to see at least one more year of him coming up.
You can make an argument that he's the greatest receiver of this generation. It won't be, like, honestly. Yeah. Besides Calvin, a few other guys maybe. Larry has been in Arizona his entire career.
That's true.
50 different quarterbacks. Bald, like, come on, man.
Just because of tenure alone, I think.
Exactly. Spotless reputation.
Yeah,
like
that plays a factor to me. I can't say that. I put Johnny Manziel on my list.
Man, I should have put Larry on my list. I'm not going to switch anything around, but yeah.
Go ahead.
My number 6 is the one line on my list and the number 1 line in all of our hearts, Calvin Johnson. The guy that has given us hope all these years because Megatron, 6'5", 220, 225, 4.4 speed. Just an absolute beast. In his best years, there was nothing he couldn't go up and get. If you threw it in 4 DBs, both safeties, both corners, he'd figure out a way to go get it. And that's how it was at certain times. 2010, 2011, I remember that game, I think it was 2011, where they played against the Cowboys in Dallas, and they had that crazy comeback where Matt Stafford was just throwing it up to him every drive. There was that catch he
caught
made,
it over
triple coverage, in the back of the end zone. That was just ridiculous.
He also did that against Cincinnati at the end of the game.
First ballot Hall of Famer, but I still behind Barry Sanders to me. I'm sorry. Barry's the greatest running back of all time. Still behind Barry Sanders, but he's the reason why this franchise has had a few relevant years in the past 15 years. A few.
I got to say, I was so bummed. When I was looking up stuff, I was like, did Barry retire in 2000 or 1999? Because if it was 2000, if it was 2000, I was like, he's number 1 on my list. But it was 99. But yeah, I got Kelvin coming up on my list too. I'm not gonna say it since you brought him up already, but yeah, probably my number 2 favorite NFL player of all time. It's just he was incredible to watch. It didn't matter how bad the Lions were. You wanted to tune in because you knew Kelvin was going to do something crazy, at least most games.
Yeah, I don't care what anybody says. They built the offense around him. Having the complement of Golden Tate, Reggie Bush has the run. Everything they did on that offense was, Calvin, we're giving you what you need because you're the guy. We know what you're going to do. We're going to give you the compliments you need so this offense can offer.
It is a shame how his career with Detroit and his career in general ended. Short
he should still be
and
playing.
incomplete.
Yeah.
Similar to Barry Sanders, unfortunately. I'll give a little spoiler alert just because we're talking about Calvin. Calvin's obviously on my list, as he should be. He's number 1 on my list. And that's just because he's a Lion. It's my favorite team. The man is incredible. Just going back, I watched his highlights earlier in the week, even before we even decided to do this podcast today.
It almost seems fake.
And
seeing the type of player he was.
It's incredible how many times the Lions would just run a deep fade into the end zone and whoever the quarterback was, just throw it up, loft it up, and he'd just go get it. So many times. And anytime you see single coverage on Calvin, that's a mistake by the defense. And he's just one of the most exciting players to ever watch for me, obviously because you get to watch him every Sunday. But he gave hope to the Lions franchise. So it was sad to see him leave. But yeah, he was number 1 on my list.
Next up for me, Adrian Peterson. I mean, I know it's kind of a cookie cutter pick, but
Nah, that's not a cookie cutter pick. Adrian Peterson is that man. He's
that
in my
dude.
opinion,
Yeah.
he's the best running back of this generation.
It's
It's
crazy.
Adrian Peterson.
And he's so electric to watch. It's not just he produced the numbers, it was how he did it as well. It wasn't him running in a straight line and getting all these touchdowns.
Exactly.
No, it's his style of running was electric.
He had everything you needed in a running back.
Exactly. But yeah, Adrian Peterson. Malik.
My number 5 is somebody Joey brought up earlier. Not going, even though he was in Buffalo, I'm going with the Seattle version of Marshawn Lynch.
Oh, I hate you.
Beast mode. Ever since that Beast Quick run versus the Saints, he put himself on the map for the entire world, and I loved
He
watching
got
him
a
run.
Skittles deal.
Exactly.
Probably the most incredible play I've ever seen.
And I loved watching him play the rest of his Seattle career. Just amazing. He stacked amazing runs on top of amazing runs because of his sheer will to not be taken down and to not get a 3-4 yard rush. If you trade one person comes up to him in the hole, he's getting 8 or 9 yards at least. You need at least 2 or 3 people to bring him down. In his prime, he was above Adrian Peterson for a few years because I think his ability to control that offense. They had Russell Wilson who was growing, but Marshawn Lynch was the reason why they were pulling. It was Marshawn and the Legion of Boom that were winning games and won that Super Bowl. And he was just incredible to watch at that time.
Mhm.
Forget those Oakland Raiders years. Seattle and that little bit of Buffalo Marshawn.
Yeah, the end of his
Yeah.
Buffalo career.
Exactly.
Joseph.
Well, I'm on number 6 since we mentioned Calvin Johnson. So my number 6 is my favorite kick returner. Devin Hester is the better kick returner, but my favorite is Deshaun Jackson.
Oh,
That's your favorite
boy.
returner ever?
Your boy.
He's my favorite returner. He's also a great wide receiver, happens to be. But when I watched him in the playoffs, I can't remember what game that was.
But
But
the game versus the Giants?
I think when
the
he get the
game-winning punt
game-winning
return?
punt return, was incredible. And he'd done that multiple times before, where he gets these returns in like very pressure situations, and he seemed to come up clutch a lot. Granted, he did also drop one at the end, but
And he's a go route post route guy,
Right.
But you got to respect him because he's one of the best go route posts.
right,
Yeah.
he's one of those guys that's so fast that he's exciting because of it. So as soon as you see him break past the secondary, you're like, he's gone for a
Yeah.
touchdown. And I watched the Eagles back then a bit because they were an exciting team with Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson. It was similar to the Dolphins, that ran the Wildcats. So that's kind of why I ran towards them, because they played an unusual offense to a sense. So Deshaun Jackson was my number 6.
He's back to Philly too, which is amazing.
Yeah.
Next up for me, okay. Just during his Lions tenure, I absolutely love this dude. Ndamukong Suh. I mean,
You love the nastiness.
the nastiness.
You love the
the
little
Detroit-
things after the
yes,
play.
Yes, I actually did. I did. It brought an edge to the
Hey
team.
man, most Detroit fans love it.
I mean, that's just
and
how
that's
it
why
is.
everybody else hated us.
Exactly. And it's kind of like that Detroit nastiness a little bit. I mean,
that bad boy mentality.
that bad boy mentality. That's why everybody loved Marcus Morris when he played here. I'm not saying he did it to the same extent, but he had that mentality. Like, no, you're not going to mess with us. I'm going to show you why. So, Ndamukong Suh brought that every game. He had monstrous hits, not very aggressive hits, more so than you usually see in football. That led me to being such a fan of his. I was hurt when he left. I really was, and
I think a lot
I
of
was
people
bummed.
were, because he obviously
The
left
defense
for money.
suffered extremely
Oh,
once
yeah.
he left because Nick Fairley left soon after.
well, and
And-
Nick Fairley fell off a cliff too.
The Lions had
Yeah.
one of the best defenses in the league for like a year.
Listen, man, I loved that defense from like 2010 to like 2013 with DeAndre Levy. I loved watching him play at linebacker.
Oh, yeah.
That was a really good team.
Those were a couple
I'm
guys.
getting sad now.
Those were a couple guys that almost made
This
it
is
in
our
line.
Lions remorse.
Listen, man, that
podcast.
11-5 team was so good.
Cliff Averill was also one of my favorite ends.
Yeah,
They let
Cliff
him-
Averill was. Yes.
When they let him go, I felt like he might be really good on another team.
And
he
he
goes
was.
to Seattle, and yeah,
Right.
they had so much talent.
Mm-hmm.
What you got, Malik?
My number, I just did my number 5. Yeah,
Yeah, you're
my number 4 is, I really struggled with this one. It's the one quarterback on my list. I love Tom Brady with all my heart. He's a Michigan man. I love Tom. He's not my pick, though. He's not my pick.
Oh, okay.
Or what?
He's not on my list, and it killed me that he wasn't on my list. My number 4 is Drew Brees. Every time Drew Brees is on TV, I have to watch him play. I love his command. I love the way he leads the team. I love the way he throws the ball. Like, just the fact that he's 5'11", 6 foot, and throws it so gracefully and beautifully. He can throw it deep when he needs to, short when he needs to, put the ball exactly where it needs to be. He does it all, and he's going on 37, 38. I can't remember how old he
Yeah,
is.
he's getting up there
but-
now.
Yeah, he's getting up there. He's really not missing a beat.
Not
And-
at all. No.
yeah.
Some people were saying last year was like one of his best years of his career.
Exactly. And when you give him serious talent, crazy things happen. You saw that year.
I thought the Saints were going to win the Super Bowl last year.
Exactly. You saw that year when they gave him Darren Sproles and he set the NFL record for passing yards before Peyton Manning broke it. When you give him legit talent, he does crazy things, and I love watching him throw the football.
Yeah.
Almost more than any other quarterback.
I used to love watching that Saints team, and even back when he used to hook up with Marquise Colston, that was my favorite
yeah.
quarterback wide receiver duo back in the day. That was a good pick.
What you got, Joe?
I'm just gonna end up going to the same numbers because we're gonna just excerpt Calvin Johnson because he's number 1
Sure.
for the Lions. So technically, my number 4 outside of Calvin is my favorite wide receiver outside of Calvin Johnson, Andre Johnson.
That's
that's
a
a
great
good pick.
That's great.
Big, physical wide receiver.
Didn't take nothing from nobody.
Didn't take nothing. One of my favorite moments is if anybody ever gets a chance, look it up on YouTube. Andre Johnson versus Cortland Finnegan.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Cortland Finnegan is a small cornerback. I'll give him credit. He doesn't back down from anything. He's a nutcase. But watching those two go at it, and Andre Johnson is nasty. Another one of those receivers that would just go up and get it, and he was just fun to watch because he was a mix of size, speed, just raw talent.
He's one of my favorite. He might be my favorite type of receiver because
Yeah.
he wasn't the fastest,
Right.
but
He's
how
fast enough.
big and physical he was, and how great his hands were, and how good of a route runner he was.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Andre Johnson.
Yep. Luckily, he was with the Texans while Matt Schaub was decent for a couple years.
I feel so bad for the quarterbacks he had,
Yeah.
man. And he's kind of been overshadowed by DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
which
Nowadays,
sucks.
yeah, it's like people kind of forget about him.
Exactly.
I think this one's going to throw you guys for a loop a little bit. Brian Urlacher.
Ew.
I like. Ew.
I like Brian.
I used to hate all those Bears.
Brian was great.
I mean,
Not
Back
one of
in
my
the early-
favorites, but he
well-
was great.
he was. And back in the early 2000s, I mean, Defensive Player of the Year in 2005. And he was just one of those dynamic defensive players. Like, if you liked defense and you liked that old school mentality, you liked Brian Urlacher.
Yeah.
And I probably watched more highlights than actual footage of him just because you see all the old stuff. All his great moments really happened before I became a fan. I mean, winning the Defensive Player of the Year in 2005, I didn't start watching the NFL until probably 2007, 2008. But yeah, Brian Urlacher.
I think I hated them because they were such a good defense. Like you
Oh yeah,
can't you can't deny it.
Lance Briggs,
Lance
like
Briggs.
that linebacking core was. Oh my god,
Yeah.
they were terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
My number 3 was the best defensive player on my favorite team at the time when they were the best team in the AFC. He's a Hall of Fame safety. He now does hair commercials because his hair is luxurious.
Troy Polamalu.
Polamalu.
Another player I hated.
Listen, man.
But you said you're on the side of the Steelers. I'm the side
Yeah.
of the Ravens. So that's
He's one of the best and most instinctual players in NFL history. The plays he used to make when he would sack the quarterback as soon as the quarterback snapped the ball, and he would just jump over the center. Like, those plays were unbelievable. Athleticism, speed, great covering ability, vicious tackler. 43 was in the back of the defense. He controlled everything. He was the guy on that team. He was the face. He wasn't even a mean face. The Pittsburgh Steelers culture is known for legendary, tough, mean face guys. Troy had long hair, Hawaiian guy, great smile, but when he put that helmet on, it was a nightmare for offenses. I loved Troy Polamalu. Loved watching him play. My favorite defensive player of all time.
Not gonna lie, Malik talking about the Steelers. He's got the Mike Tomlin look kind of going.
I just need a head.
At least, I mean, the jersey isn't a Steelers jersey, but it's the colors are right. He's got the hat
I
on.
need the headset so it could be right around.
Right. Maybe that's Malik's Halloween costume. Mike Tomlin.
There you go. Joe, what you got?
So my number 3 is maybe my surprise one, but if you guys have heard me talk about it before, it should be no surprise. My number 3 is Ronnie Brown.
What?
The Wildcat offense. I like it.
Running back
for a favorites list, I love it.
Running back for
I
the
love
Miami Dolphins.
The way he lit up the NFL for a whole season.
A year.
Yeah. The Wildcat just blew everybody up.
2008
Yeah.
Miami Dolphins
Chad Pennington. Yeah, that was
is probably one of my favorite NFL teams of all time because of how different they decided to run their offense.
It was a magical team.
They ran similar to like a college offense. And Ronnie Brown, I can't remember if it was all in one game or if it was like within a certain amount of time. He had a rushing touchdown, a passing touchdown, and a receiving touchdown. And they were just super fun to watch. Also super fun to play in Madden.
And that year was the return of Ricky Williams too. They were kind of a dynamic.
So they
duo.
had like a little 1-2 punch kind of going. And for like a little bit of time, Ronnie Brown was just electric and very underrated. But he made it to the Pro Bowl. And that team was just super fun to watch. And Ronnie Brown was my favorite part of that team because he did so many things in that Wildcat offense.
And guess who they knocked out in the playoffs that year on their magical run?
Malik, I don't like
Jay! Fireman Ed was mad after that one. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, he should have been.
They were also
Chad Pennington came back to New York and who?
They were also the first
That
team
sucked.
in the previous year. They went 1-15, and then the following year they went 11-5, biggest turnaround in NFL history. They also were the first team to go 1-15 and then beat the 16-0 Patriots or something like that. So they set a lot of records, and they're just super fun to watch.
All right, I'll do my top 3. I'm not going to talk about my number 3 because we already touched on him. Marshawn Lynch was my number 3, but my what if, Javid Best.
Wow.
He was very exciting.
Yeah,
and
That's kind of sad.
Well, he was
talking about him is kind of sad, man.
I mean, it is, but he had so much going for him, and
that long list of Lions running backs that could have been.
It's crazy.
But he was one that really produced when he was fully healthy.
Right.
He looked like he was the future of that team. Unlike Mikel LaShore, who we're not going to talk about him. Back to Javid Best.
Oh my gosh, that was so bad, Mikel. But all I think about when I think of Javid Best, the first thing that comes to my head is that touchdown run against the Bears on Monday Night Football.
Yes.
And it's one of the most exciting moments. It's sad, but one of the more exciting moments as a Lions fan.
That's not, I can't say that's sad. That was the Lions are back game.
Yes.
Because I remember the intro was Barry Sanders doing the speech.
Yes.
And then it was jam.
I was so excited.
That game was amazing.
The Lions were almost never on Monday Night Football before that. So
That was one of my best moments as a Lions fan.
That might be the best night being a Lions fan
I've
so ever had.
Happy and excited. Yeah. Malik, what you got?
My number
2
is somebody you brought up, Adrian Peterson. He's the best running back of this generation, in my opinion. The only thing that you could somewhat knock him on was his hands. He somewhat turned into a fumble machine later in his career and wasn't the best pass catcher, but in terms of just running the ball, no weaknesses. He could wiggle when he needed to. He ran you over when he needed to. He had 4.3 almost world-class speed when he got into the open field. He stepped into the NFL as a rookie and became a top 5 running back off the bat. He went into Chicago and went up against the best defense in the NFL, put up over 150 yards, put everybody on notice. Tore his ACL that one year. I think it was 2010, came back 2011, almost beat Eric Dickerson's rushing yards record. He was like 30 yards away. Like it's almost hard to put into words how great Adrian Peterson was at that time in his prime. Like he was ridiculous. He's he might be a top 5 running back all time.
Yeah,
It's arguable.
I agree.
There aren't many guys you can put over Adrian Peterson.
Mhm.
Really.
I agree. Joe?
Yep. I'm also going to go with the running back for my number 2. My list is only running backs and wide receivers, my 2 favorite positions in football. I don't know how you can't put this guy on a list. He's also one of the best running backs of all time, LaDainian Tomlinson.
I almost put him on my list.
The dude was
He
just
was on the outside of mine. I just didn't watch him enough for him to be one of my favorites.
The dude was just insane, and when I started watching football, he was like one of the best running backs in the game. Everybody knew his name, LT, made the Chargers relevant. The dude was just super fun to watch and one of my favorite players of all time.
Yeah. I also think at the time, there weren't many running backs at his size dominating like he was.
Mm-hmm.
He was 5'10", maybe 5'9" on a good day.
Right.
It wasn't the biggest stocky guy. He was speed, elusiveness, and intelligence.
Yep.
And at that time, when there were power backs and balanced guys, he was the elusive guy that was tearing everybody up. That year with 31 touchdowns.
It was insane.
Yeah, he dominated the game for a few years as a Charger, and he's a Hall of Famer for a reason.
Again, the tail end of his career kind of was not great.
He was with the Jets.
Another Jet. But
He was solid for
he
those
was.
few years.
he was
Yeah.
also a
Yeah.
part of the Visor gang, so
Yeah.
always adds to the swag.
You a Clinton Portis fan?
My brother was. So I kind of
The Dark Visor running
So
backs?
like back in the day, I would like talking about Sean Alexander in 2007, like Madden, I would pick Sean Alexander. My brother would always pick Larry Johnson. And then like I was the Willis McGahee from that Miami team, and my brother was Clinton Portis. So it was like always going back and forth.
My number 2, J.J. Watt.
I considered him also.
Again, also he's more of like when it comes to that energy, that mentality he brings to the field, plays off that Ray Lewis, everything I said about Ray Lewis. And JJ's just a stand-up guy also, but he is dynamic on the football field. 2 different types of mentality. Yeah, he's trying to help everybody off the field. And then once you get him on the football field, he's trying to kill you. So
3 straight years of 20 sacks. Who else is going to touch that anytime soon?
nobody.
Yeah.
So J.J. Watt's my number 2.
Also scored offensive touchdowns.
Yeah, that one year,
You don't
I
hear
don't
that.
think he won MVP that year. And I was absolutely pissed that he didn't win.
Yeah, he should.
Because along with having like 22 and a half sacks, he had like 4 receiving touchdowns
Yeah.
and like a pick 6. Like,
Yeah.
it was ridiculous.
Man's insane.
But my 1B, since I forgot him, is Larry Fitzgerald. I'm so happy you brought him up. That's my 1B.
Okay.
My 1A is a guy that ever since I started,
I swear if you take my guy, I'm gonna be so upset.
I'm sure we won't have the same guy. Ever since I started watching football, and I bonded with my cousin, who's kind of like my big brother, he started getting me into like NFL and college football along with my uncle. And we shared the love of the Minnesota Vikings when we were both little. And the guy that was always the man for us from day one to now, Randy Moss, the freak. I mean,
Hated him.
you're nuts.
He was good. He was super good, obviously.
Randy, talent-wise, there isn't a single receiver that touches him just from a born talent perspective. 6'4", 4.2 speed, vertical over 40. He could do anything you asked him to do from a receiver standpoint. He stepped into the league and instantly had 18 receiving touchdowns, which was absolutely insane. He dropped in the draft because of character concerns, but he shut that up instantly. I understand some people are lukewarm on him because of his hot and cold nature. If the team wasn't that good, he wouldn't play that hard. But if the team had a chance of being great, he was all-time great. He went to the Oakland Raiders. They weren't in a good place as a franchise. He didn't do much. Send him to the New England Patriots. You see what happens. Bill Belichick, Tom Brady, 23 receiving touchdowns, breaks the NFL record. There was nobody touching him. For when he was locked in completely, there was nobody on the planet, maybe even in history, that could touch Randy Moss from a receiver standpoint. Getting mossed is the phrase now. If somebody jumps over you and catches it over you, or one-handed catches over you, it's getting mossed because he did things people had never done, and he almost reshaped the receiver position. And he's favorite favorite player of all time. Randy was that guy, and he still is.
I consider Randy Moss, like the Randy Moss, like a lot of people will compare him to Jerry Rice. I feel it's a very similar comparison to LeBron and Michael Jordan, in that LeBron is kind of the guy he doesn't always seem as focused, or he gets, and he's definitely not to the point of Randy Moss either, but people will criticize him for, taking plays off and not playing defense all the time. And people will criticize Randy Moss for some of his maybe not being locked in at all times. Whereas like MJ and Jerry Rice are just like the winners. And they're those kind of
work hard at all
guys.
times, locked
Right.
in it, yeah.
Right. So I feel like those are very similar.
Although you can
comparisons.
never question LeBron's work ethic.
Right.
I'll never question Randy's either, because
Right.
he did what he had to do. But
Right. But that's a good pick. I just never liked him, but that's just me. I'm a hater. So
That's true.
for most good teams.
he's a hater and a Lions lover.
It's very true.
They go hand in hand.
Speaking of the Lions, my number one is not a Lion. Well, we already heard it. It's Calvin Johnson. So my number one, basically my 1B at this point. Another one of those small, elusive running backs, and another team that I just used to love the uniforms for. And so that's kind of where it drew me in. And my list is all basically about that time of where I entered into liking football. So my number
Let me
one
guess.
B.
You said tiny running back and you love the uniforms.
Yeah.
Darren Sproles.
No.
Dang it. Who is it?
Maurice Jones-Drew.
Oh, wow. You loved those Jaguars uniforms?
Oh, yeah.
I think those
helmets.
Jaguars uniforms
The
were kind of
helmets.
somewhat the weakest
The
to
helmets. The helmets.
me. Eh.
They had the all black. I was always a
But
fan
why-
of like, the
okay.
all black uniforms.
What moment watching him was like, this is my favorite player?
He was like one
I
of those.
can't judge him for that.
he was-
Maurice was great for like 3 years.
Right.
3
Again,
years, though.
again,
for your
But it's a favorite
player?
list. But it's a favorite
again,
list.
like I said, when I came into watching the
Yeah.
NFL, he was
Yeah.
big time. And he was one of those players that you would see like both lines collapse, and you're like, oh, where's MJD? And then he just pops out on the other side.
5'6" tank.
Elusive, but strong, always keeps his feet moving. He was just exciting to watch. And they had like that dynamic duo of Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor back in the day, which was fun to watch. So yeah, I was just drawn to Maurice Jones-Drew. I don't know why. I think again too, because people always would talk about LaDainian Tomlinson and stuff like that, and Sean Alexander and things like that. Maurice
You had to go
Jones-Drew-
against
right. He went a little bit under the radar, even though he was top tier. But yeah, he was just one of my favorite players.
Seeing him now, you would never guess he was an NFL running back. He blew up as
Yeah,
soon as he retired from football.
He's another one of those.
He's a really good analyst on NFL Network, but
his last
yeah.
couple years, he just
injuries, when you're 5'6" and stocky like that, when you start having those knee injuries,
right.
I'm surprised my number one wasn't on anybody's list.
I
I
can
actually am.
figure who yours might be
Who?
because
I'll let you guys both have. a
I've-
guess.
Sam Darnold.
I debated putting him on my list, but I didn't watch him in those early days. Is he a player that made a comeback?
Stop. I think you know who it is.
I do know who it is because I didn't watch him when he was the guy, and I liked him better when he made his comeback, which is sad to say because he was better before. Your guy is Michael Vick.
Michael Vick is my
I was gonna-
favorite player.
Once we
of
were
all
done,
time. It's
I was
not
going
even
to
close.
I was going to say if nobody included Michael Vick, I was going to say people might hate us for this.
No, he is.
You
It's
included
not
Michael.
even close. Michael Vick he was my first big time like player that I loved
He's
as
the
a kid growing
inspiration
up.
of a whole generation.
He was
yeah.
the most exciting football player I've ever seen. It's incredible what that guy could do, both with the Falcons and then when he came back after everything and with the Eagles. And then with was he with the Jets for a little bit? Yeah, I think
Yeah.
he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
right here.
his last team.
I
was
need
the
that
Jets.
jersey. I need that
There are
jersey.
too many Jets connections on this
Yeah.
list.
Yeah. But
we might need to
That's
review
where
this
player-
next summer.
It's like the Pistons is where players go to die.
But yeah, Michael Vick, favorite NFL player of all time.
That's a good pick. I considered him in a lot of my thoughts, but like I said, I liked him during the Eagles era with Deshaun Jackson, where they ran a pseudo wildcat at times.
So he was a more polished quarterback.
Right.
Yeah.
And I did like that he cleaned up his act. He seemed to have actually come back from his mistakes and seemed like he was actually a good guy at that point. Still had he was one of the strongest quarterbacks I've ever seen as far as like throwing arm
Oh yeah,
And also
effortless 60-yard flings.
not only being able to just fling the ball all the way down the field, but being able to make plays outside of the pocket are insane. And obviously with the Falcons, he was incredible, but I didn't watch him back then, and that's sort of unfortunate, but I was more of an Eagles Michael Vick guy, so that's why he didn't make my list.
I've had some very, very intense Michael Vick debates with one of my best friends because that's his favorite football player of all time, and he will try to argue with me up and down poorly that Michael Vick is a Hall of Famer, which he isn't. His impact was huge, but he's not a Hall of Famer.
I think he was on pace.
He's not a Hall of Famer.
He was on pace.
He was on pace to potentially get there. He's not a Hall of Famer.
He never really got it done.
Exactly.
Unfortunately. And the Football Hall of Fame...
He flashed greatness, went away, came back, flashed a little bit more greatness, and then that was it.
If he was a basketball player, he would be in the Hall of Fame.
Probably.
That's true.
Because
true.
because it combines college and
Right.
That's
NFL.
true.
His Virginia Tech career was great too.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest before we wrap up the show?
I'm not going to lie. I liked going back and listening to old football players that I kind of forgot about or
Yeah.
that I had to go and look and remember, because this was like the time that I really enjoyed watching football, is when I first got into it, and I forgot some of these names, and just going back and thinking about some of them were pretty cool, because none of my guys on my list are really relevant at this time, but it was so it was fun.
Yeah. Malik's got nothing.
When I first started this list, I debated whether or not I was going to put more than one Lion, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to add more than Calvin Johnson. I was like, Matt Stafford. No.
Reggie Bush made it because
Matt
he checked
Stafford
two
was on the
teams.
outside looking in for me.
I don't think any Detroit Lions fan would have him as a favorite Lion all time, which sucks. Which does suck.
I don't know.
'Cause
I disagree with that.
He's
take.
the best Lions quarterback by far in like the past 40 years.
Yeah.
Which is
Very
nuts.
true. Well, that's going to do it for the show. That was our themed episode, favorite NFL players of all time, or since 2000. We will be back next week doing another themed episode.
We're starting college football previews next week.
I think it's the week after.
Okay, week after.
Nah, I think we can still wait because they still got preseasons and training camps. I don't need to talk about that.
That's going to do it. We will see you guys next week. Have a great week.
Bye.
Can't wait to see Darnold in those horrible Jets uniforms in the preseason. So
Sammy
ugly.
D.